With that in place, we need to understand how we have studied this image, given its multiple props. There's so many. There's about 6 or 7 lamps in this image here. There's 2 beds, several pillows, a table, and a couple of chimneys. All of these props are placed differently, spatially, and therefore we need to consider what value pass do they get inside of the middle ground. Let's take a keen look at this image once more. Try and situate which lamp is in front of the other. This dark brown, almost purple lamp is in front of this red one, which is in front of this orange one, which is behind that brown one. This bluish lamp is behind them all. It is behind these two, and then this lamp is behind them all. This lamp right here, which has been cropped out of the entire image, is in fact in front of all of these other lamps. So when we understand the spatial position of each one of these props, we can better paint them. Considerations like these eventually lead you to a better understanding of your values of these colors. But for now, let's work with the understanding that almost all of these props are inside of the broader middle ground. Let's proceed in that manner, shall we? Note that since these two items are made of glass, these are actually wine glasses, I will be approaching them quite differently when I'm adding their color. Please take note of how careful I'm being with the borders of my value passes when it comes to the middle ground and foreground objects. I want to make sure that these borders are as clean as possible, unlike the fast and loose way I was making them with the background and extreme background objects, these two. If you compare the edges or borders of the both of them, it's really not comparable. These ones are smooth and clean, deliberate, or as deliberate as it can be. The reason why I am being so exacting with my edges and borders as I move closer and closer to the foreground is that it will make a huge impact later when we address things called layer masks and clipping masks. We are not done yet. There's still the foreground as well as extreme foreground that we need to consider. So inside of my foreground, there's a few items that are far closer to the viewer than others. For example, this lamp here is far closer to the viewer than that lamp. Additionally, this bed towards the extreme right, the bottom right, is closest in the extreme foreground. So we need to start adding a different value to those. Of course, it's going to be darker. And this time around, I will use a different brush. I will use the hard round. Often disabling the sketch layer will give you a better understanding. And now for my extreme foreground. This will be the darkest value pass. And there we have it. The first step of our painting is complete. Understand that there is no light here yet. There is no depth per se because all we have done is include value passes indicative of different color values. We haven't included color yet. To include color, it's actually fairly simple inside of Photoshop. And for this, I will use my background value pass, just for demonstration purposes. And once you've understood the gist, well, you can apply it onto various other value passes. Let me go ahead and create a duplicate of this. In fact, what I should do, organization compels me to create a folder just for this. I'll duplicate my background and I'll use this as the base of my color. When selecting a particular color value, it's a bit more complex than just going with grays. Grays are very simple. You just change the brightness. It's user-friendly. But when you're thinking about color, you need to understand what is the most ubiquitous color in this particular range. What appears the most. And after studying this image, as I have for a very, very long time, and as I expect you to have studied your reference image for a long time, you should be able to pinpoint what is the base color. Is it this? No, it's too light. How about that? No, too dark. So you have to go with something that's midway. And I've found that this kind of value here, towards this kind of olive green, not too brown, not too yellow, is my mid or base color. Think of it as a neutral color. And then with a hard round brush, I will just first lock the pixels. I hope that you can all see where my cursor is hovering over. Inside of your layers panel, you have the option of locking transparent pixels, image pixels, locking the position, preventing auto nesting, or locking the layer, which you should be very familiar with. I'm going to lock transparent pixels. Zoom out and then just paint. This is not a clipping mask. Please understand, this is not a clipping mask. This is not a layer mask. It is just a very quick solution, let's say quick and dirty solution, to adding color into your value passes. I'm going to call this BG color base. I'll perform this action for all of my other value passes. All of the other value passes in here will get the same treatment. My extreme background, middle ground, foreground, extreme foreground, as well as all of the individual props, because those two have their own individual color bases, don't they not? After all, doesn't this white tablecloth have a different color base compared to the counterpart red lamp? Yes, they are both on the same spatial position. They're both in the middle ground, but they have different color bases. So that's another thing to consider. Please keep these things in mind when you are painting or beginning your painting. Okay, I've of course taken the liberty of completing this process, as you can see from this image. Let's begin from the beginning. Alright, as before, I've got my resource image just tucked away in the top left corner, minding its own business. I've got my sketch, same. Here's my background gradient. Some slight alterations were made, but it really is the same tool that created this 3-hue gradient. The only change that I would want to note is I've changed my layer color. An interesting tool that helps the visual organization of your layers. If you right mouse button click on the little show or hide icon, you get the options of no color, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, or gray. Rainbow colors. So that's just one way of color coordinating your layers when they get to be too many. And in digital painting, they will be very many. Here's my value passes. You already know these. And now here's my color passes. I've color coordinated my color passes. Very vibrant. My extreme foreground is now separated to color passes for my lamp. You can see that there. my bed at the bottom right, and then all of these in red are for my middle ground. Oh, excuse me, foreground. Then these in yellow are my middle ground. In green, my background. In blue, extreme background. And as always, my sketch.